How's 2024 going for you? For Karen and I, it started out extremely challenging in all aspects of life. And then the year delivered a ton of positive and radical changes in our lives. We're in July, and we felt like it's a good time to check in on where we are and what's ahead in terms of the energy of the year. It certainly feels like there's a lot of uncertainty in the air. So we had to invite back one of our soul sisters, tarot therapist Michelle Nolan, to discuss and get a read on what's coming up for all of us and what may be in store for you. Michelle has an undeniable and clear connection to spirit, and she has her own unique way of using tarot. If you're curious about what may be ahead and you want to feel more prepared for the rest of the year, you don't want to miss this conversation. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Robin. Hi, Karen.
It's just wonderful to see you here. As always, you are part of our soul family and just can't wait to talk about this. So let's start at the very beginning. For those who are listening or watching who don't know what tarot therapy is, can you explain that and how you use the cards?
Yes. So tarot therapy for me is a blend of psychology, astrology, channeling, my empathic gifts, and the art of tarot, which is a system dating back 500 years or more. So the idea here is that I focus on healing, I focus on removing energetic blocks, but the main intention is to be aware of your soul path and then align with that soul path. And then what I like to call eventually getting to the state of parallel living.
What does that mean?
I was waiting for the
I know your readings, but I have not heard about the parallel living part.
Yeah, I'm starting to coin it that way. I think it's always been a concept of mine, but I think defining it is a little bit different. So the idea of keeping, I think we talked about it a little bit in the beginning of the year. We did the whole year tarot spread about staying detached to a certain degree about outcomes, thinking as your soul or your 5D self running alongside you. So you can think of yourselves as separate from the guidance that's happening and where you're trying to align to. So you're always staying in congruency with that 5D self instead of trying to either cross it or backtrack from it. And we stay then foot to foot, step to step in that 5D and 3D self, but yet also not, like I said, remaining attached to pushing it forward or pulling it back.
Can you just talk really quick about 5D versus 3D for people who may not know?
Yeah. So 5D self depends on also your belief system, but if you're religious, that could be what your God would speak to you, how that religious construct of spirituality would speak to you. Anything outside of yourself, that's your higher being. So in the just universal speak, you could say you're the higher consciousness, your intuition. In the psych speak, you could say you're unconscious. So in all of those aspects, it's pretty much the same. It's just through the filter of your belief system. But the idea that we do have a collective energy that we are tapping into, and we do have a deeper self and a higher level self that we're tapping into. And that is what we want to really drive our larger decisions, the larger picture of our life forward. The 3D self is our human self, the day-to-day, the reality of what's happening behaviorally, our reactions to people and things, and the outcomes of the results that we're trying to achieve in the world. But if we're not aligned with both, we can get lost in the 3D and feel like we don't have any control. If we're aligned just in the 5D, then we feel like we can't achieve and that we're at the mercy of someone else driving the wheel. The idea that we're both and we're living in both of those bodies or those fields, that we can co-create with both of those energies.
And you think about that 3D self, we came to experience being human. And that being human part is full of the highs and what some may say are lows, right? So you may experience extreme joy and extreme sadness and or fear and other aspects, but we came to experience all of that. And to your point, that reality of the day-to-day. And I know personally, when I think of my 5D self or my higher self, I think that wise part of my soul also knows what I came into this life to achieve. And when I talk about achieve, it may be learning more compassion, learning patience. It may be helping others in a certain way, not achieve what the 3D world might say is success financially or professionally. That's not what we're talking about. I think of that 5D self as like keeping me on my path of these broader reasons that I came into this incarnation on earth.
And then how that affects the collective consciousness.
That's right.
That 5D, which really we are all just one piece of that puzzle.
So when you say stay detached, what do you mean by that?
So emotionally, we can get lost in the hard stuff. Something's not working out. My relationship is failing. I am not making as much money as I want to make in my job. So that would be getting lost in that 3D and staying very attached to the fact that you don't also have a co-creating energy. When you do detach and you say, okay, I'm going to align with what's happening right now in my 3D world, ask the 5D self, why is this happening? What's the purpose? What are the lessons here? What's the reason? What knowledge can I tap into about what's happening in my 5D self and then apply it to the 3D? So typically, I would say we want to access that and detach when we're talking about something that's difficult. Like in our 3D life, we're talking about something that's difficult so that we can surrender, which we use that word a lot, to that 5D energy. And then basically ask more the question, what am I supposed to be learning here? Or how am I supposed to be applying this energy instead of getting to that emotional space of, man, I need to change this, or this sucks, or I feel like the world is against me.
Oh, that's so helpful. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of that, we did do a reading at the beginning of 2024. And we want to look back and see how did that reading deliver on where we are right now. And then we're going to do a mid-year reading and see what happens today for energy for the rest of the year. So how do you think, looking back at what came through in that reading at the beginning of the year, how do you think that's played out collectively? And then we can talk about our own lives, how it played out.
So I'll give you the summary since I looked back, and it's important to review where we've come from. That's always a part of my readings in general. If we're looking at a path, particularly a personal soul path, we want to look at where the energy came from and then where it applies now, how we got here, right? So we can start seeing the dots connect. So in that January to March period, we had really hard hitting energy. So Rob, I know we talked a lot about that Ace of Swords, which was this reality check, this open, honest assessment of my life, who I am, what I want to do. So it was a little bit of a slap in the face, I think.
I'm getting the chills just talking about it.
Very big energy. So it was the Ace of Swords, the Lover's card, which is a major arcana card, the Sun and the Emperor together, the Ten of Pentacles and the Four of Swords. So just to summarize that, it was about a lot of motivation first in our internal space of, I am so ready to achieve something of long-term goal and success and make the changes necessary and connect to ourselves on a daily basis. And then how do I apply that in the world so that I can connect myself to that collective energy, to the greater good, to a personal space, what I want to achieve. So it was very big, bold energy coming right out of the beginning of the year. And I think it had a lot of almost a blend of pressure and also excitement, which I guess in the beginning of the year, we could typically say as humans, we look at the calendar year like it's a restart. The interesting part about this particular, the reading about that was I didn't see much action. It was in the mind and in the drive internally to do the assessment and to give something structure. What do I need to do personally in all aspects of my life? Whatever is the most important and prioritized at that time, and successful. But then also with that Four of Swords at the end of that 3-month period was this healing aspect and a reflection, which kind of simmered down the energy to that next 3 months. That was January to March. So very hard hitting. And I don't know how you both felt personally, but for me, I had been recently in a car accident and then I had a dog attack that 3 months period. So it was insane, but also
very physical for you.
Very physical. That also forced me to, at the end of that 3-month period, which was March, to actually be completely still to figure out what I'm doing.
Mine wasn't as physical, but it was deeply emotional. And it was really one of the harder times that I can remember in my life. From a family perspective, from a personal growth perspective, it felt like I was at war with myself, and also just having to handle situations that were really challenging on all fronts. And I would agree by the end of that time, I did get still and I made decisions for myself that really have carried me through. And I know we'll talk about those next 3 months, but I didn't know how I was going to get through that time.
And it's so funny as you're talking, Michelle, I'm just so eager to hear what listeners or people watching are thinking as well. How it's funny how you said that, Robin, because I felt like she's describing me and my life. Exactly. And isn't it interesting how we're all in sort of these different spaces, different experiences, different phases of life, even,
Yes.
yet all feel that it's that energy that was prevalent for me, like you, Michelle. I felt like I was literally going through physical pain. Even though it was emotional, it felt like physical pain and anxiety at a level that I have not felt, and feeling like I didn't know how to get out of it. I couldn't navigate my way out, which is not like me. Usually I can go through things for a certain period of time and then I figure it out, and I was really stuck there. I just find it so interesting that collectively we all felt like we wanted to connect, but we couldn't.
And I remember talking to other people and they were like, I thought the beginning of the year is supposed to feel so good. I'm like, just because that's what the calendar says,
Right.
that doesn't mean that's what the energy is. And I know that when we did that reading, that helped validate so much. And then I was able to also tell people to listen to that podcast episode, but also just say, no, that this is a time to really look inside and know that this is on purpose for you to get to the core of where you need to go and face certain things. That really matched.
It was big. And like I said, that Ace of Swords was really prominent. That's what was standing out for me the most, because anytime I would say you can't have an Ace of Swords moment without really telling yourself you're ready for the truth.
That is good.
What is the Ace of Swords card again?
I call that truth with a capital T. It's like just no denying it. There's no running away from it. There's no sweeping things under the rug. There's just the blanket, bold, shoved in your face truth, and then you have to deal with it.
I'll just add, I feel like that's a lot of the lessons in life too, that we get when our soul knows that we need to make a change, and yet we justify, no, I'm fine, I'm safe, I'm not going to do that. And then it just gets louder and louder. The physical pain that I felt got me to that place where it's like, I'm going to die, literally, if I don't change.
And it's funny because the Lovers card is such a beautiful card. The Lovers is about connection. The Lovers is about actually real love on a conceptual level, not just romantic love. What is love of yourself? What is love of the world? What is love in your purpose? So when you put the Ace of Swords and that Lovers card together, traditionally in tarot, the Lovers card was called the choice. So the Ace of Swords is basically screaming at you to make a choice.
I have goosebumps so much right now.
It is. And that Sun with the Emperor card and then the Ten of Pentacles, it's not just about the forecasting of what you want in the long game of the success for your future, but the Emperor and the Ten of Pentacles is so rigid. The low vibration of that energy is rigidity. We've been doing it and it's been working for so long, and we've created something that is probably substantially successful, or at least is foundationally solid. And then we're being asked to question it.
Goodness. Girl.
I mean, no one likes that, right? The Emperor doesn't like to be questioned. That energy does not like, because it's basically your soul, if you look at that, is saying back to you, this is how we've done it. So this is the way it should be. And then to go into the end of March with that Four of Swords, that was the quieting energy that was needed to reflect of, is this still my choice?
That is exactly what it was.
So it's slap in the face, probably a knockdown, but break apart of what foundationally has been there. And then forecasting ahead of the choice that you make coming out of that and what to do about it. But then we go into April to June, and this is obviously why I'm so passionate about tarot. I use a different deck in the podcast for the first part of the year. So I pulled a different deck for this April to June, and we started off in a new deck with the Four of Swords, meaning that how it ended in March came in April, and it started us off in that reflective period. So the Four of Swords to the Five of Swords to the Seven of Wands to the Two of Pentacles and the Queen of Pentacles. So after we were hit with having to make a choice, April to June asked ourselves, where do we suck? If you think about it, where does our life, where is it falling apart? What's going to keep us from following through with this choice? What's our conviction really to this choice? And it actually starts becoming real. It started to become ingrained as a level of commitment with that Queen of Pentacles. April to June is when we have to get real with all the tangibles.
That's so true.
and say, am I really set up for that choice? Have I really healed the things that need to heal within myself or my family, my relationships, my financial situation, whatever it is, to say, I'm following through, that I'm going to follow through. So April to June was messy. Let's put it that way. I'm trying to use my own personal experience here too, because I felt like I was asking myself the same questions. I kept asking myself, why do I keep replaying something that I should let go? Why do I keep repeating a pattern that I need a break by now? And now I'm starting to see my own sabotaging behavior.
So it's more self-awareness there.
It's self-awareness. I look at that energy as internal because we're reading for the collective. I think there was a lot of just messy stuff around. Things were not ready to move as fast as the choice internally in our mind we wanted to make something real, because it's very different energy to decide something in our mind for our lives and then to build it.
I think that's really true. And then making a choice and then you putting it into action, it sometimes can be different or harder than you might think. And I know for me, it was harder, but also figuring out knowing it was the right choice and how do you make that work in life? I'm like, this is overwhelming.
And that's that Five of Swords. It is very bittersweet energy because we are forced to look at the failures that we've had with ourselves, with our relationships, with the world at large, and look at stuff that really isn't working, and then just getting real with it and saying, wow, I can't just talk about the big idea of things. I have to look at and be real with what isn't working. And then now is the commitment and the conviction part that comes in about doing the hard stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's the hard stuff. I mean, if you look at the world at large, I think we just ended that energy in June.
And as a collective, it's all over the world. But even if specifically in the United States, there's some deep shit going on and has been, but like even more so in more of an upheaval way at the moment.
Yeah, I'm feeling what you're saying. And even in my own experience too, of the pain and the agony of the first part of the year, moving into actually for me, some of it was choice made for me. And then having to look at the reality of that situation and how that really changed my life. And what did that mean? And how did I feel about it? And to your point, was I going in the right direction from there? And that's the place of self-doubt that I think so many of us grapple with. We don't always trust what our choices are. So I feel like that's, for me, a lot of that self-introspection came as a result of that from April to June. But then there's like a shining coming out of it, I hope is what you're going to say next, Michelle.
So coming out of the icky period, I would say, of April through June, the July through September came in with the High Priestess, the Hangman, the Ace of Wands, the Three of Wands, and the Fool.
Oh, those are great cards. Oh,
I know.
The Fool and the Hangman.
I know. If you think about that April to June, if you were training, right? If you're like training for the marathon and it was all the training, that sucks. So July through September, coming with the High Priestess and the Hangman, we came into was still had this patience of the Queen of Pentacles that ended that April to June. She's working towards her goals step by step, methodical. The High Priestess and the Hangman, it almost is like, I felt like it was a good doorway of, if we're embodying that Queen of Pentacles energy, we are in the process of things. And then it gives that portal of entry of energy for the High Priestess and the Hangman to really give us the download. That is a major spiritual energy of pause, but enlightened pause. The Queen of Pentacles is real world with the High Priestess and the Hangman, with the Ace of Wands to make the start that you've been wanting to make. But the High Priestess and the Hangman coming in the beginning of July, I like to look at this as our software update. When we're transitioning to a large change and a large action, we want our skills to be honed and set for the speed and the pace that we're going to make that change. So we needed to get updated. This is what I love about this parallel living idea, is once you give over and you say, yes, I commit. Yes, 3D self, I commit to that choice. Then, and only then, in co-creation energy, the 5D self says, all right, we'll help you out now. We'll give you the information you need. will give you the more of a piece of what we've been trying to teach you. And now you can learn it. And then we're looking at that as moving into August through September, the Ace of Wands and the Three of Wands and the Fool, that is just fresh start. We've set the course and it is now the action. And the Fool energy is bright, airy, free, excited. It basically, like a computer, if you think about it, we just restarted the computer. That's how I like to look at it.
I love that. I know Robin and I, in particular, what we're working on right now is absolutely that needed fire to get us.
It's fire. Yeah, you're right, Karen. It's fire because that's Ace of Wands, Three of Wands, and the Fool. The Fool's a lot of different energy, but fire is definitely probably one of the potent ones there because you need initiation energy.
Yeah.
You need momentum energy. You need change energy. You need creative birth energy, life force energy.
That is so in alignment with what's going on, I know, for Karen and I. What about you?
I think I'm still in the High Priestess Hangman because you both know this, that I'm considering a move. Selling my house. Last night, I've been literally been going back and forth about that for a couple of months. So I think I'm still receiving the download. I think my update is still going on. What do I need to know? What do I need to learn? And you're just in this space of hold, the power and the pause. So I feel that part of that right now in early July. And Karen, you probably, if anybody feels that right now, that energy, that's you.
I do. And part of what it is also is it's the releasing and the unlearning so that you can step into this next phase so that you're not carrying all that baggage of the old along with you in the new period. And so I think that goes back to that April timeframe for me is how do I start to release that? And then into May, which is really a defined time for me to say, how do I even experience this world of outside of corporate America and now doing my own thing? It's a major transition and just that unlearning.
It's also, I'm feeling starting in this July period, it is receiving of download, being aware and looking at every day as a new opportunity to receive something new in the form of a new person coming into our world or my world, into something coming across my feed or an email that comes in that sparks something, a conversation that sparks something else, and being open enough to recognize that I've made this choice, I'm on the path of this choice, and there may be even better ways or more fulfilling ways of bringing that choice to fruition. So it's that constant receiving, which then to me feels as we go into August and September, taking action on what will be received during this month.
I love that because that's exactly sticking with that analogy of the computer. You don't want the old operating system. You want to be running something faster.
And there may be something that you never even thought of. And I think that's the being open to receiving in that way.
Yeah, very much the High Priestess and Hangman, open to the surrender of receiving and not acting on it.
Even though collectively, as we were just talking about, who the hell knows what's actually going to happen? It doesn't feel as ominous, even though it could. It felt to me as ominous as the beginning of the year.
It's the excitement of the action now versus
the reality check of the
choice.
Yeah.
And we were saying before, creative birth energy, you don't necessarily know what that's going to be. A mother gives birth to a baby. They don't technically know what it's going to look like or what it's going to be at all.
And actually, that's cool, Karen, that you brought that up because the Fool card, a lot of times in decks, would be a child because
I get that card all the time. And
yeah, you always get Fool energy.
And when I first got it, I was like, hey, wait a minute. And then when I understood what it was, I have a lot of that childlike energy in me. And that's when I always feel my best. So whenever I see that, I know I'm on the right path because that's in essence who I am.
Okay. The Fool ended September. If we think of that at the end of September, this is when really that initiation phase actually is starting. Coming from September into October through December, it went the Queen of Wands to the King of Wands, the Knight of Cups, the Six of Swords, the Six of Cups, and the Ten of Swords. So the Queen of Wands, typically, I love seeing her come into that energy of the Fool because it's feminine energy. The gender doesn't matter. But the idea, I always like to say, she's like my coming out of the closet energy. This is me. I haven't really exposed this part of me to the world yet. This part is new. This part is authentic. This part is excited and ready to rock into what all of that change is going to be. So she is the for me, she's one of the most creative energies. The theme when we did the podcast in the beginning of the year was of being truly authentic to who you are and bringing those gifts into the world. Our purpose is really defined by our gifts. Our purpose is defined by why we're here and what we are made of so that we can actually use those gifts. So going from the breakup, the rigidity of the beginning of the year with that Emperor and that Ten of Pentacles, to the Queen of Pentacles, to the dedication, and then the Queen of Wands, she's just ready to have a good time now. Let me experience life through the filter and the lens now of I trust who I am and what I'm here to do. We can look at that Queen of Wands as change in general. The newness of a feminine, we're inspiring change to happen instead of forcing change to happen. Then leveling up. The Queen of Wands to the King of Wands and the Knight of Cups is that personal sphere of going from, now I'm going to elevate, because in tarot, it's not about just the gender, but it's about the mastery of how you're moving, right? So the Queen to the King is I'm leveling up. Okay. I'm leveling up. I'm taking the feminine energy of receiving and being in that change-minded focus, and now leveling to the harder core action of what needs to happen to make that experience and the results in the world take place. So the King of Wands, the Knight of Cups was together. So that tells me, just generally speaking, falling in love with the change. It becomes what we're flowing with instead of fighting anything. That everything's changing faster and bigger and bolder. So those two energies seem to be the major part of the theme of the October through December of the just change in general, authenticity, passion, and drive. And then to encapsulate that energy, the Six of Swords, the Six of Cups, and the Ten of Swords, interesting enough, is all about talking about the view of what's almost behind you now. So the Six of Swords is transitional energy. We're not okay with the Six of Swords energy because you never really know what's going to happen. But if we align with it and we take the view, this is why where the Queen of Wands and King of Wands, why they're such an important characters or energy for this period, is we settle into change and flow with it instead of try to make it stable. Don't try to make it stable. That's not what the energy's for towards the end of the year. We're supposed to be moving with the change. So that Six of Cups talks about the past. The Ten of Swords is like stick a fork in it, is done. Hopefully, if we're aligned here by the end of December, is we can look back at the end of the year, throughout your years past, and you can really see how different you are from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. Who was that person? Beginning of the year. I don't even know that person.
And when you said that it's like that Ten of Swords is like stick a fork in it, it's done. It's coming to a place of acceptance.
Very much. But I will say, at least through December, because we haven't gone into 2025 yet, but is to allow for the bittersweetness of change too. We have to allow for it. We have to allow for the reality with things that end that we're not comfortable with. So that was the view when we first did.
That's pretty big.
Yeah. So we're going to see what happens now.
Should we do it?
Yeah.
So I am going to reread July, where we're at now, July through the end of the year, like a mid-year check-in, because energies do change, timelines do change, highlights of energy come through, and you always have to look at this. What we do on an individual level is affecting also the collective consciousness energy and vice versa. It's both ways. It's a dual dynamic. So hopefully, if we are aligning more with our 5D self, that we're also instigating a higher level of change, energetically speaking, all around it. So that part, I think, is what people get locked up in, or a little questioning of why isn't it the same? It's not the same because we're making decisions and we're doing things, hopefully, that is also changing the energy outside of us.
I'm excited.
Okay, so let's get to it. Let's see. I'm going to pull 5 cards, July through September, and see where we're at and where we need to align with in these next 3 months.
And as you're reading out, Michelle, we should be listening on a personal as well as collective level, right?
Absolutely. Because my personal view is that we can control ourselves at the highest level. And if we are controlling ourselves and making decisions for ourselves at the higher level, we're actually affecting the vibration of everything else. So if we stay there, we are affecting the world at large. Okay. Oh, you're going to love it. Wow. Okay. You're going to love this. In the beginning of July, the Fool.
Oh my God. That's amazing.
That's the energy that, remember, July to September was High Priestess, Hangman, Ace of Wands, Three of Wands, and Fool. And now we are starting with the Fool energy, moving to the Temperance card, to the Tower card, Ace of Wands, which is repetitive. That was there when I read the first time, and the Four of Cups. All right, so this is how I read this energy. It still has a kind of a powerhouse feeling, similar to what I read with the July through September. It just has a different, I think, has a different vibe of maybe how we're interacting with it. So the Starseed card and Star Child deck is the Fool. So it starts with the Fool. So whatever was happening there at the end of June, we made some large commitments to, and now the Fool is ready to go. We're ready to take on the energy quickly, just take the leap of faith that we are pointed in the right direction in the energy that we're supposed to be pointed. And the Temperance card, which is interesting to that, is very similar to the High Priestess and the Hangman. But the Temperance card, which is almost something I like better, where maybe the elevated energy came in, is the High Priestess and the Hangman would be in that download phase of like, teach me, I'm ready to receive and learn. The Temperance energy is more of a alchemy of that divine energy. It's more of an alchemy of anything that's spiritual is showing up in more of a real world sense, not as much in kind of this subtle intuition, but more in, this is where I would say we would notice even things like synchronicities, things we would see around us at this time would be stronger. That's what it feels like to me, is the spiritual realm becomes a little more unveiled and closer. It just becomes a little more tangible. So that energy that I'm feeling is, if we want to look at how we're affecting the collective consciousness, from what I read originally, is that I think we did a good job. I think we're doing a good job with that Tower energy here now with it, saying, wow, we've really, as a collective, are starting to understand, and we're making a much bigger impact, because this Tower card is the breakdown of all the structural things that are old. That Emperor probably back in that beginning of the year was like, this is how it should be. This is how you should be. This is who I am. And the Tower is, nope. Sorry, that's just not true. And so if we're connecting how we've changed energy on a general sense, this is almost spiritually speaking them saying, great job. I love this. This is almost to me like Spirit saying, thanks for pressing yes on the download, because we just updated and now we've blown it all apart. So the Tower energy is massive. That is massive collective overhaul. Very spiritual, but also very disruptive. So I always like to bring it down to some real life stuff. This is the part on the co-creation side where we could feel we've definitely have witnessed the power of nature and stuff outside ourselves affecting us that we don't have control over. So if we look at this, like, partly we've done a good job. The other part is, spiritually speaking, they're saying, I'm glad you are on board, but at the same time, you're in for a ride. So the Tower is never easy. But I always like to think of, we bring the Tower or the Tower comes to us. That's how I like to look at this card. When we bring the Tower, that Temperance card is combined, hopefully, with that High Priestess and Hangman energies, that we've learned who we are, what we committed to, what we needed to learn, and then we can make the change, and we're not white knuckling the change. We're not grasping for the Tower to stay maintained, because it's coming down anyway. So the Temperance card does tell me, I think collectively speaking, more than most, is that we have learned. That's what it tells me, or we are learning as much as we can. But the Ace of Wands with that, and that was in that old reading too, with the Ace of Wands. So the restart is all the same. This is the same energy. It's basically the same energy. It just has a different look because, and again, it's a conversation that we've been having with the collective consciousness and with our higher self, our 5D self, throughout January till now. So it depended what we did with that energy and what we were willing to receive and do with it. So the change is happening regardless. That's the part where the spiritual energy is like, sorry, it's happening. I'm glad you're learning, and I'm glad you're willing to not white knuckle it and allow the Tower to happen. The Four of Cups, here's the place that has shifted, I think, more than anything else in this reading for what I originally forecasted. The original forecast was a Three of Wands. The Three of Wands is the setting the course. That's the idea of be optimistic about what's coming towards you. So it was almost like Spirit saying to you, this is a good thing. To just hold on. It's going to be great. But in the reality where we are now, the Four of Cups is saying, I'm not so sure. There's still a little like uncertainty that I'm not completely letting go, or I haven't completed that download that I was supposed to complete. So the Four of Cups tells me right now, this is why the Tower is here, because the Tower is now forced to force change, where in your worlds, think that personal or in a larger scale, where we're still holding on. We're not learning what we're supposed to learn. So have we done a pretty good job? Yeah, I think so, because that Temperance card is here. But there's still, I would say, a large piece of us that is butting up against that change and that action, and kind of not wanting the Tower to fall completely.
You can definitely see that on the collective.
Yeah, I agree.
Personally speaking, I'll use me as an example because this very much applies to my life right now.
Yeah, definitely.
I cannot make that decision. I'm having a very hard time making that decision about whether I should sell my house or not sell my house. That's when the Tower does come in, because it's basically saying, we gave you the opportunity to make the change that you were supposed to make, and instead you need us to make the decision for you, and you're not going to like it now. So it is a little bit of a pushback, I would say, like a universal pushback of energy that's trying to get you to wake up in a bigger way. And that's where that Four of Cups thing, I think, has led to the change feeling a little more uncertainty and maybe even potential disappointment with the change versus the excitement that we originally forecasted, as we were supposed to stay optimistic and open to.
It's true. I think in anything big, the big changes that happen, I think in our human form, as much as we get excited and are optimistic, there are those moments where we remember where we were back in January and through March, which was this old foundational way of thinking and being. And so when you're thrust into this sort of new energy, it feels really good at first, but then there can be those moments where it's, wait a minute, I don't have my normal foundational safety zone. And am I really okay? Do I really know where I'm going? I think that's a natural part of the 3D. All of a sudden you'll be like, but wait, am I really where I'm supposed to be? And so that natural questioning can crop in.
And so that's why, like, if looking at the forecasting, when we initially talked about it, is if you look at that view as yourself, let's say, forecasting what you would be doing right now in July, you saw that big picture. You saw that I'm excited because I'm going to be starting something new. You forecasted the positivity and the optimism of that change. And so it looked and felt, and spiritually speaking, something you should be genuinely just excited about, right? And hopeful about and wanting. And I think that's why you have to look at these energies when we read tarot as a conversation that's happening alongside us the whole time. Is they were forecasting and they were saying, yes, be excited, let all that change happen, you're going to be fine. But then we get here and we're still not totally convinced of the change and the action that needs to be happen. And so the universe is pushing back, saying, okay, we were trying to set you up, but you're still fighting it a little bit. So I think the energy feels very similar. It just feels like collectively the conversation has gotten harder.
Yeah, harder, a little more complicated.
Because I like to look at this like a group, right? We should look at this like we are an entire world of humanity that's trying to fight for the same thing. Ultimately, there's maybe just a big piece of people, and including ourselves, that are just not listening.
And still hanging on to what we know as normal, as the way we used to do things, the way we were raised to do things, that kind of thing. And so even though there's this part of us that wants new, there's a better way, it's new. So you don't know. And so you question, it's easy to fall back into these old patterns, old thinking, and you've got to stop resisting, stop questioning, and move forward.
And move and just do the action. Just let the change happen. So the Temperance card, that veil of energy, felt like it's come forward more and is trying to show itself to you, trying to nudge you, get you to see that surrender that needs to happen. It's okay. Don't worry. That's the Four of Cups. Stop holding on to what must die.
Well, it makes me also just think one of the things that Karen and I ask all the time is for clarity. Please show us, please tell us. And to me, that's what this is also saying. That we are getting those messages, not just from a download perspective, but literally it's like certain people walking into your life, having a conversation with someone, to your point of synchronicity, where it's like you were just talking about that prior, and then a few hours later it comes up again with someone totally different. And you're like, wait a second, I have to pay attention because it's coming up now a couple times. So for those listening or watching, pay attention to those moments because they're trying to tell you something. Those are the cues.
Yeah, this definitely feels more forceful. So like this feels like spirit, your 5D self was hoping for a little more openness at this time in the season. And we're not being as open as we should be because the change is happening regardless.
I'd also say too, Michelle, there's a lot of messages in these cards in the sense, and I'm going back to the Fool as being the first one. It's speaking to me as just remember to be light about it all. Yes, it's all here to teach you these things and you're here to take this journey, but at the core of it, if you can go in with that sort of Fool energy, then a lot of that will fall away. This doesn't have to be so hard. It doesn't have to be the old way of doing things. And yes, it's scary because you don't know, that's not intuitive to you. And so letting go and being that child again can be really hard for so many of us, but it's going to happen anyway, folks. Whatever's going to happen. So if you can make that sort of your buoy that you're clinging to as you're going through this energy, you'll feel a lot lighter and you'll probably get a lot further.
That's a great description, Karen. You are absolutely embodying that Fool energy for sure in the right way. Other people, maybe even including myself, I would say, to be real about it, I'm still gripping a little bit because the human side of me is like, I don't know if I can handle this much change right now. What can I hold on to that's going to make this boat a little bit bigger and more stable than the little raft that I have to get on?
Yeah. In your case, let's say specifically from a house perspective, for you, I don't know why I'm getting this to say to you, but to me, it's start checking out new places and maybe something there will get you excited enough to be able to say, okay, maybe this time in this chapter is over and maybe this is exciting and new and I can really get into this. So it's just giving yourself the opportunity to see. And it's those moments when you walk in and you know this is your place. And I know you feel that about your place. I know I feel that about my house. And I also know that there's a time and a place when there may be something new to come along. And I feel like for you, there's just been this whisper for months. At first, it felt like a little bit forced.
Yeah.
So you were pushing against that. And now maybe there is something, there's this soul of another home calling you, and you just have to be maybe looking for it a little more.
That could be.
We'll see. I can't wait to see. Just saying.
You're right. Believe me, I'm still a human being doing my own readings for myself every day. So this is, in the parallel living idea and philosophy is something I practice every single day. Detachment comes only for the stuff that we are very much attached to. That's different for everybody. So my practice is also as a human, not just as a reader. And so just like I said, Karen's a perfect example right now of aligning more so with the energy of the Fool, the Ace of Wands, and the Three of Wands, which is wide open saying, I'm ready to go. But the difference here is from the forecast in the beginning of the year is just the pushback. Not that anything is really different, and that's what I love about it. But almost like spirit speaking louder and saying, maybe you didn't hear me the first time, but a lot of change is about to happen. So why aren't you accepting the update request?
Let's see what happens.
Okay, October through December. Let's see what has happened or changed in this energy.
By the way, Michelle, I could do this all day, every day with you. I'm just always enlightened. It's not even always about the energy. It's just about how to look at life and experience in general.
Thank you. I could do this all day too.
Feels like a gift.
It's fantastic. All right. So remember, we had the Queen of Wands, the King of Wands, Six of Swords, Six of Cups, Ten of Swords. This is where, as we look further out, at least the way I read anyway, is very reflective of what we've done with the energy up to this point. And now that I see what we've changed to with that Tower and the Temperance energy, the pushback, now I see that Queen of Wands and that King of Wands is no longer here. That change and kind of maybe actively and the embrace the active embrace of the change is here as much. But right in the middle of it, still here, is that Six of Swords. So the Six of Swords, about the instability, about the transition. We're still moving from point A to point B. That is not different. That's exactly the same. But again, like I said, in the beginning of the year, it's like spirit having a conversation. If you were to follow, here's what would happen if you were to align with it to the highest vibration. But we're human and we struggle with completely surrendering to that, and we don't. So the change that's happened is with this Nine of Pentacles card. This is a little earthier than the Wands energy, but I still like it because it is the embodiment. What I like to call her, this is the 3D Empress. So the openness of wanting more, wanting the change, wanting to be fully abundant and secure is here. It's a very success-oriented energy, the Nine of Pentacles. It's a very independent energy, which is similar to the Queen of Wands. There's a certain level of independence, but the part that I see that is highly different is that it's earthier versus fire. It's like we're trying to ground the fire energy. We're trying to ground, even though we are collectively still in the energy of openness and being success focused, what we've probably initially started from the beginning of the year, that part is all positive, and I love that. But I think we're trying too hard to ground it and make it tangible when the Wands energy doesn't want things to be tangible. Right? It wants the movements to be fast, like just change, let it settle out at the end. We're not at the end, so don't worry about the end. But here with this Nine of Coins, we're saying, let's be on board with the changes. Let's make sure we're also being really practical though, and trying to make some stuff real by the end of the year so it feels like a good outcome to the change that's happened. We're trying to pull back the energy and ground it. But again, all positive, I think. It's not as fast moving as it originally wanted to go. So because this is in the heart of the reading with this 3 months, that Six of Swords is telling me we're still on the boat, just like it originally said. We're going from point A to point B. But I think the boat we got on was slower. They wanted us to be on the fast boat, and we're like, nah, I'd rather take the more luxurious, slow route because there's things I want in this transition that I can't let go of. All right. To that Nine of Coins is the Ace of Cups. So if you remember in the King of Wands, it came out with the Knight of Cups. So there was the movement of what they want to do is fall in love with the flow of the change. That was what the forecast was originally. Now with the Ace of Cups here, we are asking ourselves a different type of question. How are we open to all of that change? And what can I get out of that change right now? By the end of the year, I want to feel it. I want to feel the results of that change. And with the Ace of Cups, it's feel new, feel fulfilled, feel connected. If I was speaking to my 5D self, and this was a conversation that I had in the beginning of the year, and my 5D self said, just let all the change happen. Let it all go for it, get on the fast boat, worry about the results and the fulfillment later. And my 3D self says, I got to get something out of it though, by the end of this year. I got to get something out of it. There needs to be a compromise. The compromise is something that needs to still feel secure. I still need to feel connected and to feel like some sense of fulfillment in that change. There's not a wrong answer. There's not a wrong forecast. There's not a wrong consequence, but it's an interesting conversation, right? Because that's how it feels. Feels like this was a conversation that was had a long time ago. And now when we're getting to the end of this year, we've decided to compromise on the speed of that change. But the core of it is still the same, the Six of Swords. The core of it is the changes happening regardless. The movement across the water to the other side in that boat is actually happening. We didn't decide to not take the action that is happening right now, the Fool. Right? We didn't decide to not do the restart. It just looks different how we're getting there. So to the Knight of Coins and the Five of Coins, see, it's all earth energy. Originally, Spirit was saying, leave that island over there, go to the other one. I promise you it's going to be better. I promise you. Just go faster and just leave it all behind. Drop all your luggage. Just leave. You'll be fine. Everything's there when you get there. Now with the Knight of Coins and the Five of Coins, here is our human side is really pushing back on that. It's saying, slow down. I don't have all the things that I need at that new island. I don't want to feel like I don't have enough money. I don't want to feel like I don't have the foundation and the stability that I once knew. I don't want to feel like I'm being left behind. I don't want to feel like I'm being left out in general. Okay. I don't want to feel isolated from what I traditionally have known to be stable. So I look at this again like a conversation that was being had, and Spirit wanted us to say, just leave already. And we're saying, I am, but I'm going to go much slower in the right direction. Because the idea there, though, is remember I said that Ten of Swords and the Six of Cups, that was like past. It's like if you're having a conversation with your best friend and you're saying for years, you're like, I really feel like my relationship's over and we need a divorce. And over and over and over again, your friend says, this is what you said the year before. Just get a divorce already. This is what you've been wanting to do. Okay. So this is that conversation. And this is the answer, which is, I'm not totally ready though to get divorced. So the movement is still going that direction. I have to say that Ten of Swords, instead of it being an abrupt ending, it becomes the Five of Coins, which is a weird place of feeling almost like we are uncomfortably not a part of something anymore. Instead of us just ending it, we are saying, now I just feel almost a level of uncomfortable isolation. So it's the same vibe, but we're deciding to stay there.
It's like instead of ripping the Band-Aid off.
Exactly.
And if you think of that on some sort of collective level, I could see that where there's just fear, right? Fear drives that. And most of us know it may hurt for a second when you rip that Band-Aid off, but then you're good 2 minutes later. And most people are sometimes just too scared to do it.
And it's security. Again, feels like it's overall the alignment of the energy is the same, is we're moving from one place to the other place and it's not stable. That's the general theme. How we do that, how fast we do that, and what our feelings are regarding that is a different thing. And I think we're having a conversation of saying, I would rather feel secure and know, even if I knew that there was more growth on the other side, I would rather opt to keep in the level that I'm at right now than take the risk on the bigger growth on the other side or the other place. So it's like the boat slowed down at the end of the year when the forecast was hoping that we would have gotten to that island faster.
And what I find also interesting, something about 2025 and shepherding in very different energy from an astrological perspective. And maybe that ends up being the real push to acceptance of change.
Now that you're saying that, Robin, I remember that as well, right? She actually did say the same, like things would slow down in towards the
year, right? This year was going to be a change, but slow.
Correct. Yeah. And by next year, that's when really the momentum will kick up again. So that makes sense. And considering everything that's going on in the collective.
This is why astrology is a part of this. But to me, this is tarot for me. The way I like to read is a very changing energy of how we are also changing.
Totally. You're right. You're reading this collective energy of our souls.
It's what I do. I will say that the part that I love that's still here, though, that Ace of Cups is here, the hope that when we finally get there, it's going to be exactly what we want and exactly how it should be. And I'm going to be fulfilled and I'm going to be happy. And that change was worth it. That hope is still here.
Wow. That's a beautiful way to end the year.
Yeah, I like the Five of Pentacles at the end there. It's an interesting change because it has that same vibe of that Ten of Swords. Like the Ten of Swords is not an easy energy. Like it feels like something is completed.
And to me, the way that I'm looking at it as well is you're still, that same themes, as you said, are there. And that idea of that you are still a very different person from when you started, even though there's some of that energy from the beginning of the year, you are a changed person, continuing to change, continuing to accept change.
Exactly. And that's the part that I think we have compromised on by the end of the year is we're compromising less change for a little more security or stability. But then ultimately it still feels we're starting to feel like a fish out of water, which is what was, I think, predicted anyway. The world, it's not the same. It's not the same.
And I think we chose to be here at this time and we can handle the instability. And everyone listening, everyone watching is a part of the rebuilding, is a part of the new. We came here to be part of that. And so if you can hold on to that, knowing as we go through this, change can be very uncomfortable. Change can be very exciting. but it's all things. But then knowing that you're here on purpose to help create new structures, create newness for the collective, create newness in your own life, then you can look at it somewhat differently.
I also think too, the regrounding aspect is really important in the journey because we are the 3D people. And that is the point of us being here in the first place. And that connection with security and safety and all of that is part of what makes us the human beings that we are and able to go through those experiences. If we weren't human, we wouldn't. And that's the whole point of it all. So almost that idea of it slowing down a bit at the end of the year after all of the change to just take a minute and remember who we are, reground and who we are is probably exactly the point.
And it's okay to want to see results as you go, if you look at it that way. Right?
I agree.
Like,
yeah.
right?
Honestly, Karen and I are always asking, just in addition to show us clarity, but give us a little carrot. Please drop a little something in our lap so that we can see the fruits of our labor.
The other part of it too, though, is the deserving quality that I'm getting from this is trying to, I think, ground the energy of feeling like we deserve the change that we instigated. You have to feel it. You have to feel like you deserve it.
Wow, that's huge.
That's a big one for so many people.
With that, the King of Wands energy has more of a confidence. That change is, I'm not questioning the change. It's just, this is who I am. And so this is almost like the question of saying, do I feel like I deserve all that? Do I deserve more? Do I deserve the attention? Do I deserve the success? Do I deserve the new love, the new job? We're pulling back because I think our human side is still tentative.
We can't wait to see what happens in our own lives, what happens in the collective. We want to hear from everybody as the year continues. And then I also can't wait till we do this again for 2025 as well. So thank you for channeling all of this and for giving us a map for the rest of the year and explaining it so beautifully and clearly for everybody and doing what you do in your own way.
Thank you, Robin and Karen. I love doing these readings with you and just being on the podcast. So I always appreciate you asking me to be here to talk to the collective because we want the collective to be better.
We learn so much every time you're here, and it's inspiring. And it's like Robin said, it's a map for all of us to follow in times that are very uncertain. So we'll take whatever we can get.
So we'll take the hope.
And a little fool, a little extra.
Yeah, we're in that now. So we're feeling all the excitement of that. So that's good.
And embrace the change. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, guys. Love you guys.